Hello and welcome to the Aligned Podcast. This podcast is for anybody who's interested in personal development and wants to create a better life for themselves, their family, and everybody around them. I'm joined, as always, by my amazing co-host, Tom Waller. How are we today, Tom?
I'm good, mate. I'm still absolutely buzzing for this podcast.
Yeah, me
I think
too.
I texted you just the other day. I was like, dude, I appreciate you, and I'm still buzzing for the podcast.
You did.
It's just, like I think we said earlier, we've worked together in various ways for years, and I think this has been brewing and building for a while.
Yeah.
And it's just so nice to be able to really impart the experience that we've had on our journey so far to help those who are on the same journey really make a difference. And I visualize this going into people's ears or through their eyes as they're watching on YouTube, and I really see them going, okay, actually, maybe I can do something different. Maybe I can change something. So I'm just buzzing for it.
Me too. And so we're recording this on Wednesday, and the podcast has just started being released this week, and people are starting to download it and listen to it. So thank you to everyone who is listening to it. And I've already had messages from people saying that it's inspiring them to do things, and it just feels amazing. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really excited for where it's going to go.
And I think it's nice to be. I've had a podcast for a few years. I've never had a studio. I'm loving the studio. It's so cool. I make sure I take the fancy car when I drive here because it's just like, yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm in the zone. And I'd like to thank you. Like you've created this. Like those people, if you're listening on the podcast, please check out the YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube, and check out the studio, which is super awesome. And it's just really nice to have a vibe. And like I mentioned on the previous episode, I literally have some total of 3 friends. Like one I speak to every week, you, because we're working together.
Yeah.
And 2 others I rarely speak to. But it's so nice to be able to sit down and discuss topics that I'm enthusiastic about with someone who's also enthusiastic.
Yeah.
To people who I know are going to really benefit from it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. The studio is... So I've recently just moved into this space in November, and this room, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. I remember you coming around the first time, and it was like a storage room, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it.
You put a green screen on there, weren't you?
I was going to put a green screen up, yeah, because I was going to use it for the course that I'm creating. But this is a much better use of the space. I'm really happy that when we had this idea to work together on a podcast, I was like, yes. And I had this table in storage, and it all just worked perfectly. So
it is a nice table as well, dude.
Yeah.
How did you actually get it in the room? It's like the door's tiny.
Yeah, so luckily all the legs come off. You can't actually see the legs on the podcast, but it's got a really funky design with a big metal black leg that goes down and then a wooden one that goes the other way. So you can't actually see it from any angle in the room, but it is nice.
That's awesome. And so we've been committing to the podcast, and I suppose in doing so, has that developed you in any way? Like, has anything that we've been working on in the podcast, like having to commit to a certain time of week or topics, or has it improved anything you're doing, or has it enhanced anything that you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. So these mics, the audio, so I'm very natural with video. So I do a lot of video, as you know, with clients, and creating just audio podcasts, and it's a slightly different way to go about it. So linking up these mics into one dual mic to get them through the laptop and things like that. So it's progressed me in digital media ways, which is something that I've not really done before. I mean, we've done a little bit of podcasting together with your podcast, but this is another level. And then my reading as well has taken it's given a new angle to my reading, because now I know that next week when we're recording, we're going to be recording about certain subjects. And when I read, I see things in the reading that I'm doing that relate to what we're going to be talking about. And so I note them down and I think about them, and it's just put a different aspect and framework on my own personal development. So, and they say the best way to learn something is to teach something. 100%. So, yeah. What about you?
I agree with that. Like it's brought more meaning to the reading, which is cool.
Yeah.
I have made a purpose to be posting more on my social media. Mine's at Dr. Tom Waller. What's yours?
At Abandon Average.
So make sure you check those out.
Yep.
Good little plug.
Yeah.
But I've been more purposeful in the sense that my reading has taken more purpose. I immediately post after my reading a teaching that I have got from that in that day.
Yeah.
And in the reading, it's enabled me to to fill and bring more content to this, which was practices that we were both doing anyway, but it's just allowed that to be enhanced. And like the previous episode talking about planning enhancing your life, having something that just brings more meaning to some of the work that you're doing, I think it's been brilliant.
Yeah, and for me, the social media side as well, actually, I didn't mention that before, but when these episodes go live, I'm sharing videos of myself talking, just free flow videos, which, as you know, and as we've mentioned in a previous podcast, is something that I have struggled with for years. And actually having something and a purpose to share something about on my social and pick the camera up and just talk directly to the camera it's awesome. It's liberating for me. I want to do an episode about it later on where we really go into it, because people have no idea, if they're looking at this now or listening to this podcast, how much I've struggled with this. So maybe we can go into it in this episode, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen you struggle. Like, I remember, like, originally I was helping you do some speaking, wasn't I? And you really struggled with it. And you just wouldn't know it right now.
Yeah, thanks.
Every time we sit down and do a podcast, I'm freaking jealous of your booming voice. Voice for radio. I've got the face for radio. You've got the voice for radio. As a team.
But we can get into that today, because today we're going to be talking about adversity and
sacrifice. Yeah, I did. It came with a post I did the other day, and Viktor Frankl had a quote. He said, "In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds meaning, such as the meaning of sacrifice." So that again, it said, in some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds meaning, such as the meaning of sacrifice. And as humans, we are so conditioned to avoid suffering. We're so driven to find more and more comfort. And I think this comfort, I mean, there's a great saying from a chiropractor, Sid Williams, and he said, "Comfort comes as a guest, it lingers as a host, and it stays to enslave us." Comfort comes as a guest, lingers as a host, and stays to enslave us, in the sense that we've just become so comfortable, we just don't move anywhere. We do nothing. Whereas suffering, when it's found meaning, can make such a difference to one's life. And this can be in the physical realm, like you have to suffer in the gym to create a better health in your life and longevity in your health. Like for me, reading, not anymore, but it used to be, it literally was suffering. I innately quite bad at reading. Mm-hmm. I used to be terrified when I had to read something in front of the class, but now it's a love of mine. But that suffering has created success in the future.
There's a lot of different things to that. Like you see people in the gym who are not suffering and they're not benefiting from it. So you see, and I would never hate on anybody who's in the gym, but I do see people in my gym and they get on a machine and they lightly do, and then they sit on their phone and read, and then, or text, and then 5 minutes between sets, and then again, and just not, and then as me like sweating it out, and like I really put myself through it in the gym. But that's because I know that suffering is going to be what creates the result afterwards. And not only that, but in the world today, the level of comfort that I see people, we've all got it, and the world has not always been like this. No. Like we have not always this. The sooner people realize that we're actually living in a fantasy, the better, because we are living in an unrealistic society and world. Like even as far back, even as recent as like my grandparents or our grandparents, they weren't living in the world we're living in. And people think that it's going to be like this forever, and it's not. No. And the sooner people start to get used to a bit of adversity and a bit of suffering, the better equipped that they're going to be for what's coming, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's not necessarily to be fearful of what's coming, but to be prepared.
Prepared, yeah.
And like we have got so comfortable and therefore so soft as a society, and this is going to upset a few people, that we talk tentatively about that person in the gym who's not sweating.
Yeah.
Whereas like, come on, like if you like, you're obviously listening to this podcast because you want to get better. And to get better takes some level of personal responsibility. And it takes coming to a point where you look at yourself and go, am I really doing everything I can? And if you're listening to this and you are that person in the gym and you're thinking, oh shit, these guys are calling me out here a little bit, don't be disheartened by it and turn this off. Like, listen to it again and say to yourself, am I actually putting that effort in? And be prepared to suffer, because if you are just going in and going through the motions, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your breath, you're wasting your space, which you're never going to get back again. And it's a crime that and most people who are listening to this are living in such a free-ish, such a, what's a better word? Such an abundant society that they could do so much.
Yeah.
And if they take that on board and change it, it'll be hugely different. And it's really interesting. I see this, and I remember my dad talking about the fact that when he was younger, they grew up in it's basically a terraced road, and at the end of the road is the factory where his dad worked. And the house is 2 up, 2 down. He shared one room with his brother. He's a Yorkshireman, so they walked uphill to school both ways and all that kind of thing. But the toilet was a little shack in the back of the garden, and in the winter they had to go and break the ice before they went to the loo in the middle of the night with no torch.
Yeah, and most people nowadays, if they had to do that, would just...
There's no comprehension.
Crumble, they just wouldn't...
No comprehension.
Yeah.
But I also see that comfort has become a huge part of his life. And it's so easy to get caught up in that and forget that these struggles actually make us stronger.
Yeah.
So what are some struggles that maybe people can think, like we just gave the gym example, which is simple, but people could think about or lean into, or what are some struggles that or sacrifices, quote unquote, because sacrifices are relative, I believe, but what are some sacrifices or some struggles that you deliberately put yourself into each day and each week that you know are making you stronger in the long run, whether you see it in that moment or not?
Yeah, so for me, one big comfort that I've always hooked onto is food. So at the minute, I'm in a deficit constantly, and I've lost quite a lot of weight over the last few years. And being in that calorie deficit, rather than seeing it as, oh, I'm hungry, I need to eat something, seeing it as adversity that I'm going through because I know that it gets the results that I want. So that's one. And then the other obvious one is the cold exposures and cold showers that I do every day, that start to get comfortable after a while. So you have to extend. It's so easy to adapt.
It's funny how they do that. But that just shows we can adapt in the adversity to make us stronger. Food is a big one for me. I am a foodie. I'm the modern day bulimic when I'm bad. I will eat and then I will gym so freaking hard to overdo it. Yeah. But if I'm trying to get results, then that, like I was saying to you, I'm allowing myself maybe a meal or half a day a week to just chill. Yeah. Because I'm not in a cut phase. I'm trying to grow, but I'm being super clean through the week. And those treats come up and you're like, oh, I could do that right now. But you've got to be so disciplined with yourself, especially when no one's watching. Especially
if you are in a bulk or a size adding phase, and you know that you need calories and you want to consume calories, it's easy to consume shit. Oh,
do you know what pisses me off? Oh, I'm in dirty bulking. Fuck off. Yeah. You just, excuse my French, but it's just ridiculous. People just making the excuse for coming. If you're trying to bulk, there is a way to do that that's gonna make you bigger, but also healthy.
Yes. It's not just about size. It's not about losing weight or gaining weight. It's about...
how many bodybuilders have we seen in the last few years die?
Yeah, loads.
Mad. Yeah. Now, that can be accounted to something else as well as the stuff in their life, but we're not going to talk about that today.
Not just yet. We want to do a few episodes before we get banned.
Oh, fuck. So, yeah, I mean, it's only been a couple of weeks we've been doing this podcast, and it's been a great ride already. Yeah. It's for me, it is a sacrifice to find the time to put into the week to come and do this. And I know it is for you on top of the work that you've got, and you invest more time in this than I do. And I really appreciate that.
No problem.
But in that sacrifice, we know that it's going to create something for the people listening in the future, and for ourselves and our development too.
Yeah. It's massive for my development just to go back to speaking on camera and getting used to being out there, and being vulnerable and exposing yourself, really. The journey that I've been on with that, like I started trying to record videos like 8 years ago, and I've done a little bit, stopped a little bit, done a little bit, stopped a little bit, and to actually commit to it, and this is for the long haul. Like I'm committed to thousands of episodes of this podcast. So yeah, that progression and that adversity and putting myself here and not forcing myself to do it, but putting myself in an uncomfortable position. It actually excites me now to think what I will become after that adversity, rather than just shitting myself about doing it.
But that's what people don't see, and I think it's a really good thing to focus on for a minute. Like, people are going to look at this now and be like, "Oh my God, those guys got a studio, they got a podcast, it looks amazing." Like, they made that happen. It's been years in the making, literally years in the making.
Yeah.
Like I had a podcast, like you just said, on and off for maybe 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Never really came to anything because I didn't focus everything into it. I've been in public speaking for years, but failed a lot at it before. And we both sit here fully knowing that this is nowhere near as good as it's going to be.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's very, very dangerous. And all the people we listen to who inspire us and we learn from, we may see them far along the journey or quote unquote have made it, yet they are not there. They do not see that. And I think that is a quality of someone who is really trying to get better and succeed in life, is that there isn't really an end point.
No.
Like, I think I came in here this morning, I said, I'm just about to hear someone on the podcast say how they've got to a point in life where they feel they don't need to do anymore or don't need to keep pushing. I'm like, I don't think I'll ever get there.
No.
And I think this guy's full of shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But the one important thing to take into account is that if you are starting out on a journey of adversity and something that you find difficult and that you struggle with, that confidence builds as you go. So every single time you achieve something that you didn't think you could do before, your confidence goes up a notch.
Yeah.
And then it goes up a notch. And the only reason that we're sat here now is because we've done those little steps and taken those things and put that something out there, or put a video out there, or worked on something, or done a speech on stage, or done a podcast, or done a video. And then eventually you get to the position where this podcast, for example, how much prep did we do for this episode?
This is the least prep we've done for any episode.
None. Basically none.
Yeah,
you wrote that one quote down there. Yeah. That's it. But 5 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to sit here and riff on a topic like this. It's because of the work that we've put in up until this point. Yeah. So put in the work, keep going, and the confidence and the rewards will come. And
it doesn't last forever. It has to continue to be worked on. So I want to give a really good example for that. So Sarah, as we're recording, she's currently pregnant. And Sarah has been a real gym goer for years. Like, she's a really athletic girl. She used the gym. She's done triathlons, everything. And she, throughout her first trimester, was really continuing to use the gym. Really, like, I'm showing up. I'm using the gym. I'm really enjoying it. And then she got some discomfort. And then she hit a wall, and she got really knocked in her confidence, knocked in her abilities, and stopped the gym for a couple of weeks. And then it really started to mess with her mental health, because that's her body image and also her outlet. Yeah. And then she decides to seek help and invest in someone who is an expert in women's health and exercise, and she gets a program. Mm-hmm. She gets the program. She's now got a plan, which we spoke about in the previous episode. Yeah. She goes back into the gym once. She comes out like, that was okay. She goes back into the gym again. She feels a bit better. Third time, which was a couple of days ago, she says, really good, Tom. I'm starting to feel like I'm getting my confidence back. Yeah. And she's getting back into it again. Yeah. And it just shows, like, you can be on the road and something may knock you, but there's a couple of things in that. One, don't give up. Evaluate why. Start again and ask for help. Yeah. Like, find those mentors who are there. Find those coaches. Find those people who are going to help and inspire you on the way. Yeah. Listen to this podcast and start to make those predictable steps again, and you'll really go further than you thought possible. So I encourage people listening, like, absorb what we're saying, re-listen to these podcasts, find coaches, find mentors. If you have any questions, the email's on the descriptions, and you can put questions into the comments on YouTube. And we're happy to riff on any topic that you've got, or any questions that you've got that you want help with your personal development. We'd love to sit and spend some time to really help our audience, which we know is growing from the feedback we've been getting.
Yeah.
The subscribers, which I'd like to thank. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so on podcasts and on YouTube, because this is really making a difference.
And not just coaches and mentors, though they are very, very valuable, but there's so many resources out there now that you can go and watch on YouTube, just like this podcast. But there's say you want to learn how to speak better on video. I've watched loads of videos about how to speak better on video, loads and loads of videos. There's courses, there's Skillshare, there's Udemy, which I don't really use anymore, but I know it's got some courses on it. So if you're in a position where you can't necessarily afford a coach, or you don't know anyone, or there's no one around you who has done what it is you want to do, utilize other platforms such as YouTube.
Yeah, and literally anything's there. Like not the other day, but when I first got the Landy, I was like, where do I put the AdBlue in this car? So YouTube, when you put AdBlue in a new discovery, and there you go, straight away. Anything's on there.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. Try introducing some adversity into your life. Stop hoping everything is easy and start doing the things that are going to make you stronger. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you, Tom, for joining me today.
Been a pleasure, and we'll see you on the next episode.